The Paperclip Murders, Chapter 11. God's Miracle Water. My nerves had been shot after that chance encounter with one of Satan's retarded children, i.e. the aforementioned clown, and I needed to think on a lot of things that didn't have anything to do with bulbous red noses and weeping men. So I did what I usually do when I needed to drown my troubles in a gallon of vodka. I headed to Buster's. Buster was an old Hungarian guy who happened to look a lot like the old Keaton comedian, and the nickname stuck. He'd also worked for a mob at one point, and he was known for breaking a guy's left arm with a hammer if he owed Buster money. So I guess he got a double moniker. Buster and I went back a ways, and we weren't always on the friendliest of terms, but I helped him steer clear of a couple of warrants, and in return he agreed to not try and throw me out of his bar every time I showed up for a nightcap. I deposited myself in the dimly lit table at the back of the dimly lit joint, poked a finger in the air in the direction of the serving girl, and waited. Her name was Carrie, or Jenny, or Sally, or some such thing. But to me, because of her squeak and her accent, she was always Brooklyn. Brooklyn walked up to the table like most exotic dancers approach a stage, snapping gum in her mouth with staccato cracks that left my frayed nerves jumping from gunshot to gunshot. "What'll it be, doll?" she asked, one thick eyelash fluttering at me, and I ordered my usual gin and tonic with a shooter of old Overholt rye before I stopped and made it a double. She toddled off with my order, and I had just started to relax back in my seat, the creaks of the day echoing in every joint, when a familiar face poked itself around the aged wooden frame of the door. It was Dave Stravinsky, one of my contacts at the coroner's office. He blinked at me through his glasses, his long face smiling sheepishly, and I motioned him over with a wave of my hand. He scratched the tip of his nose with one idle hand, and his other hand swept his hat off his head and left his wispy, corn silk-colored hair standing up on the top of his head like a fuzzy pine cone. He plunked himself down in the seat opposite me with a gasp, like he'd just run the 100-inch dash with a refrigerator tied to his lungs. I braced myself for the litany of questions that Stravinsky brought with him to the table, because the guy almost always turned everything he said into a question. But first he had to slap the table and laugh, a sound like a badger inhaling cocaine in Idaho and then realizing it was Ajax.
"Hey, where's the service, right? Good to see you, Gray. You buying? Because I think you're buying, right?"
Standard procedure these days was that if Stravinsky brought something good to the table for me, I got him good and proper soused, which was why lately he'd been drier than white wine on a dead Frenchman in the Sahara. But here he was, grinning like an idiot, his fingers tapping on the table like a deaf kid trying to keep time with a jazz band, and I frowned, because this was going to cost me. "What do you got for me, Dave?" I asked, and released the floodgates as he burbled forth in all his wordy glory.
"So I was down at the office, right? Trying to keep my ears open for anything on those two stiffs you was asking about, right? Hennessy and Brock, right? So anyway, everything's cut and dried, right? Because Hennessy, they can't find nothing much wrong with him except for the busted nose he got when he dove in the pool, right? But then Albertson, the coroner, right? He goes and he sees something weird about Hennessy's insides, so he starts digging deeper, right? So to speak."
My hands were imagining a nice new Stravinsky neck to strangle for Christmas. But just then, Brooklyn came back with my refreshments and saved the poor slob's life, as well as distracted him. Dave asked for a beer and a shot of rye, after looking over at my double with an admiring eye, and he was momentarily frozen in place as Brooklyn departed in her dreamy fashion. I took this opportunity to get my mouth around a joyous blast of whiskey, and was rewarded with a taste that was part whiskey and part, well, unsavory. Something kind of like dirt. I peered into the bottom of my glass, and was annoyed to see that there was indeed what appeared to be a little clump of dirt. It had muddied up the liquor to some degree, and while I was not about to throw away God's miracle water, I felt that this deserved some sort of explanation. As Dave turned around to continue his excited tirade, I put a hand up and called out to Buster, who had just started cleaning the bar top on the other side. "Hey, Buster," I said, and pointed to the glass for effect. "What's the big idea? This tastes dirty." Buster shrugged his shoulders, swiped the countertop with another towel, and jerked his thumb at the door. "The barrels got dirt in them some this time, and accidental," he said, in his thick Hungarian accent, which I couldn't duplicate if it would save my bowels from being set on fire. You don't like it? Get drink someplace else. I thought he was being rather uncharitable, and I was about to tell him so in language that was probably completely foreign to Mother Teresa. But Dave took that opportunity to resuscitate his voice box and resumed his interrogation.
So anyway, right? And now Albertson, guess what he finds out? He finds out that Hennessy's nervous system took a whack, right? Like something paralyzed it? And now Albertson, he's contemplating whether or not it could have been an allergic reaction to something he ate, right? But what if it ain't? What if he was like intentionally paralyzed or whatever and went into the pool afterwards? What if it was murder, right?
Then Stravinsky stopped, eyes blinking rapidly, waiting for my reaction, probably hoping that I'd call him a good boy or pet his head or throw him a ball for him to fetch. What he told me confirmed my suspicions already, that it hadn't been an accident. Justice was starting to wail her distinct roll call, and it was going to be all hands on deck. I downed the shot of Overhold, without remembering its unpleasant occupant, though I was reminded of it a half-second later and made a face. Brooklyn plunked down Dave's order, and he snatched up the shot eagerly, raising his glass to toast me even as I was putting mine down. Dave, I said, a millisecond too late to ready him for the unpleasant aftertaste he was going to have as he dumped the sailor down the chute. There's mud in your eye.